In a small, forgotten village weighed down by poverty, desperation has become tradition. As the sun rises over the dusty square, a frail girl named Anya, only 12 years old, stands silently on a worn wooden platform. Her feet are bare, her dress faded, but her eyes carry something stronger than fear, hope clinging to its last breath. Days earlier, her older sisters had been auctioned off, one by one, taken by strangers in exchange for food, money, or a false promise of a better life. Their names are whispered now, their fates unknown. Anya is the only one left. The crowd gathers in silence, not out of cruelty, but survival. In this village, girls are seen as mouths to feed, not hands that can earn. The auctioneer hesitates, his voice subdued, as if even he is tired of this ritual. Anya doesn't cry. She doesn't beg. She simply waits, not for rescue, but for someone to see her not as property, but as a person. She wonders if anyone sees her differently. If anyone believes she deserves more than this wooden platform. She doesn't know if love exists beyond this village, only that it never reached her doorstep. But even as the heat rises and people begin to walk away, she stays still, grounded in quiet courage. And in that moment, something begins to change, not in the air, but in the silence. Because sometimes, the world begins to shift not when someone speaks, but when someone finally listens. As the sun climbs higher, the crowd begins to thin. The auctioneer, weary and ashamed, lowers his voice, no offers, no bids, just silence. Anya stands still, her small hands clenched at her sides, the weight of being unwanted beginning to settle in her chest. Then, cutting through the murmurs, a voice rises from the back. Steady. Clear. I'll take her, it says, but not with the tone of possession, rather, with quiet conviction. Heads turn. An older man walks forward, his coat worn, his beard gray. It's James. A widower the village rarely sees, except at the cemetery where he visits the grave of a wife long gone. No one expected him to speak. He's lived alone for years, with no family, no children, just the silence of grief. I'm not here to buy a daughter, he says, looking only at Anya. I'm here to give her something no one else has offered, a home, and my name. The air thickens. Whispers ripple through the crowd. No one moves. Anya tilts her head, confused. She doesn't understand. She knows what being bought feels like, but this is something different. Something gentle. James doesn't look at her like an item. He looks at her like a person. Like someone who matters. And in that stillness, with no coin exchanged and no price set, something sacred begins to happen, a heart opens, and another finds the courage to hope again. The next morning, the dusty chaos of the village is replaced by the quiet hum of a small courthouse. The walls are plain, the benches hard, but to Anya, it feels like a world away from that wooden platform. She sits beside James, her legs swinging slightly above the floor, her fingers clutched around the edge of her chair. She doesn't speak, but her eyes dart between him and the official seated in front of them. James's hands tremble slightly as he signs the documents, papers not for ownership, but for guardianship. Not to claim her, but to make her his daughter in name, in law, and in love. There are no contracts for labor, no promises of service, just the firm declaration of family. He leans toward her, his voice low and steady. You were never for sale, Anya. You were just waiting for someone to see you as priceless. The words hang in the air. No one in her life had ever spoken to her that way. Not like a burden. Not like a tool. But like someone worthy of keeping, without conditions. Her throat tightens, and her eyes brim with tears she can't blink away. She doesn't know how to say thank you, so she just leans into his side, and he doesn't move away. The official clears his throat gently. Your name, child, he asks. James answers for her, his voice soft but sure. Anya Collins. And just like that, she belongs, for the first time in forever. The old house creaks softly as James pushes open the door to a small bedroom. Anya steps in slowly, unsure what to expect. The walls are painted a gentle yellow, the kind that catches sunlight and holds it like a memory. A small bed waits in the corner, draped with quilts that look handmade, each square stitched with care, not perfection. There's a shelf with a few worn books, and above the desk, a framed pencil drawing of a smiling woman. James notices her gaze. "That's my late wife," he says quietly. "She would have loved you." Anya doesn't answer, but her chest swells with a feeling she can't name. No one's ever made space for her before, not just a bed, but a place to be safe. To be wanted. On the desk lies a small notebook and a pencil. That night, under the dim glow of a bedside lamp, she writes her first letter, not to James, but to her sisters. "I'm safe. I miss you. I'll find you. I promise." The paper is thin, her handwriting crooked, but her words carry the weight of love she's never been allowed to show before. She tucks the letter under her pillow, a quiet vow pressed to her heart. And for the first time, Anya lays her head down not in fear, but in peace. The house may be humble, but the warmth it holds is priceless. Because the roof over her tonight wasn't bought, it was given, out of nothing more than the courage to care. A year has passed, and the girl who once stood trembling on an auction block now stands tall on a brightly lit school stage. Dressed in a simple skirt and blouse, Anya holds a paper in her hands, her voice steady as she begins to read, "The day I wasn't bought, but chosen." The room is full, students, teachers, and parents. But Anya's eyes find one face in the crowd, James, sitting in the front row, hands folded in his lap, eyes already glistening. He smiles, not with pride, but with awe. Because the shy, broken child he once met has become something more, a voice that carries. A light that reaches. In her essay, Anya tells the truth. Of the day her name was spoken not in sale, but in love. Of a man who gave without asking for anything in return. And of a promise she made, not just to herself, but to every girl who still feels invisible. As her story spreads beyond the school walls, change begins. In nearby towns, whispers turn into questions. Questions turn into reform. Villages stop treating daughters as burdens. Policies shift. People open their eyes, and their hearts. When Anya finishes, the crowd erupts in applause. But James doesn't clap right away. He just watches, hands still, heart full. Because he knows the truth, he didn't just save a girl. He helped her save others. And in doing so, they both rewrote what family, hope, and humanity truly mean.